Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Now, we heard about the graduation ceremony at UWI-Phil in the last few days, and we're happy to have joining us this morning the young lady who graduated with first class honors in international relations and delivered the valedictory address at the UWI graduation ceremony, Naomi Cambridge. Good morning to you, Naomi. Good to have you with us.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you.
All right. I'm sure that you are over the moon about all the work you've been able to do. So this is quite a feat. Congratulations, first of all. What did it
Thank you.
take to be able to make it to this place where you are valedictorian for your graduating class?
Oh, a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work. And I guess kind of the cliche stands, sleepless nights, breaking my back over different things, lots of multitasking, and a lot of support is the biggest thing, I think, for me. Yeah.
So what motivated you to pursue a career in or pursue a degree in international relations?
Yeah, so to be completely honest, I actually initially wanted to do an international development, which I know is not too different, but I wanted to do international development overseas. And as the saying goes for everybody well, not everybody, but lots of people who really try to go overseas for university, it really is very expensive. So I had to go to the University of the West Indies right here in Barbados. And I wasn't happy at first because my dream was, snapped in half. But then I realized it was the best thing for me. And I fell in love with international relations, the world of it, the, nuanced ideas, critical thinking, the debates, everything is such an intricate, really thick degree that has so many layers. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
At a number of conferences over time as well. How has this kind of primed you for all that is happening now?
Yeah, I think the conferences were really beneficial. So you kind of get thrust right into the meat of exactly what that world is like. So whether it was mock debates or whether it was actual sessions, whether I was on a panel discussion or sitting in watching a government discussion or something, it was really interesting to see how nuanced the world of international diplomacy is and how many different issues international relations holds and how important these issues are for even small states like us in the Caribbean. And I think it was really interesting to see the role that we all play in these discussions, even if we might not be politicians, diplomats, whatever the case may be.
That for you, climate action and youth engagement are issues that are near and dear to your heart. So how did you come to the place of realization of these topics as topics that you really wanted to pursue?
Oh, well, I think I was kind of always interested in social justice and climate advocacy. It's hard for me to remember a time where I wasn't, because I think at its core, being an advocate, being an activist, being interested in those kinds of issues are just really steeped in empathy and compassion for others and for society and for things that are bigger than yourself. And I've always had that. And when I got started working with organizations like the Ashley Lashley Foundation, which I did a lot of work with over the past few years, and other nonprofit organizations, that interest and that compassion just grew. And I was able to figure out the ways that I could give back and also, connect it to all of my other interests, whether it's creative, in the creative sphere, or whether it's in international relations. There were so many ways that I found that you can give back and be interested in these things. Yeah.
Into the world of sharing through a podcast. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, in August of this year, August 20th specifically, I launched the Notes and Quotes podcast. And it's really targeted at those in probably age ranged 18 to late 20s, but really and truly anyone that wants to listen. And what we really do with the Notes and Quotes podcast is it's supposed to be fundamentally at its core a community, but a community that really enriches the people who are in this age range, So in your early adult years, which tend to be a really turbulent and stressful time for people. And I wanted to give back to people who might be struggling that time, make it relatable and have them understand that they're not alone. But I think one of the most important issues and things that I wanted to do with that podcast is to make sure that whilst doing that, I'm also educating and informing people and enriching their minds on issues that are really important. So whether they be social justice issues like climate change, representation, whatever, or also mental health issues, which is another big one we talk about. Those are the ways that I wanted to be able to enrich people's minds. But like I said, at its core, I want it to be a community that where people feel connected, inspired, and really seen, because fundamentally, that's what anybody else wants in their life. They just want to feel seen. And that's what I want the Notes and Quotes podcast to be.
Do you feel as though legacy, and you know that we can't overlook this, your mom is Sophia Alsop, and
Yeah.
your granddad having created that awesome Caribbean book. Do you feel that legacy has guided you to this place in any way at all?
Oh, well, I mean, it would be remiss of me to say no. I think we're all just a mosaic of everything and all the people in our lives. So, in some ways, I would say yes, because my grandfather kind of enriched me with so much knowledge and so much inspiration before I even knew what to do with it. I mean, he died around 2008. So, by that time, I I wasn't even 10 yet. I was still very much a kid. And so I still remember him sitting down and reading with me and teaching me about the world in his own ways. And that was foundational to who I am today. And then my mom and my parents and all of the people in my community have done so much for me in so many different ways. And I think built up my mind and who I am today in ways that I probably I'm not even fully aware of. And yeah, like I said, we're a mosaic of everybody that we've interacted with and everybody that has built us up. So yeah, I would say that I am a product of legacy as well, yes.
Oh, that's good stuff. Diplomacy definitely came in with that particular response. I absolutely love it. But it says all that we need to hear in, paying homage to those people who would have worked with you to get you to this place. The valedictory address, though, were you nervous at all? How did you
Oh
prepare
my
for
God.
this, to face thousands of people and present this speech?
So a bit of a quick story. So I was in complete shock when I got the email saying, oh, you are valedictorian. Here are the guidelines for time of how the speech can go and all that stuff. And so I was absolutely terrified, 100%. And I got that maybe 2 weeks before I was on that stage. And so every night when I was thinking about the speech and trying to figure out what am I going to say, and then when I did figure out what I was going to say, I practicing in my room to my mirror, I was shaking, I was stumbling, I was still completely terrified. And then miraculously, I did that. I was in that state for 2 weeks. And then miraculously on the night, everything kind of melted away. And I don't want to say it was like magic or anything. I think I just burnt out all of the nerves that I could throughout the 2 weeks. But just before I went on that stage, everything I think was quiet. And I know exactly what I want to say. And I know exactly why I want to say what I want to say. And I guess I just did. And yeah, it was great.
So, what was that message that you shared?
So the message has a few layers, but the core things in the message were at this point in time, not just in for graduates or, for people who are in their 20s, but across the world, it's a really big time of pinnacle change. And so what I wanted to share with everybody is their role in this time period. So in a time where AI is becoming, in the center of our focus and changing our ways and our practices so much, we're facing economic uncertainty and social justice issues, climate change, all of these different really monumental things, how that impacts us coming into the world now. And then, of course, the number one questions that we are being faced with as graduates is what now? what are you going to do next? It's all this uncertainty that you're stepping into and you're facing now, being thrust into the real world, and how daunting that can be, and how the weight of expectations can really weigh down who you are as a person and your true passions. And I wanted to step in front of that as before people are stepping out into the real world as graduates, and make sure that they know you need to stay true to yourself. You need to be bold and take as many mistakes as you can. But then the most important thing, I think, is that graduating from an institution like the University of the West Indies cannot be overstated. You can't ignore the historic significance of that, where, over 100 years ago, we were having our enslaved ancestors walking and working on the very land that we were sitting on and have graduated from. And we are now educated, and we've gone way beyond their wildest dreams. And I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged and really embraced as well when you're thinking about yourself as a graduate from the University of the West Indies. And then the last thing was that I really wanted to tie it all together with highlighting our motto, which is Oriens ex Occidente Lux. And any UE student, unless you were really invested in UE history, didn't really care about, a light rising from the West. Most people don't really focus on their school motto anyway. They just focus on going to school, doing what they need to do to get the degree. And I think that it was really important for us to, as we're now leaving on our last day here, to focus on what that truly means and how that connects to everything else that I had previously said.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, you certainly are one for bringing things together with your content creation and your interest in digital media, your advocacy. You say that you're working to bring all of this together to share your passions. You also have a love for storytelling.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Tell us more about it.
Oh, well, probably from my dad is the first person that pops to mind, I think. So my dad has always been a visionary. He's always been a creative in so many different ways, whether it's art, whether it's digital creation, whether it's entrepreneurship, which is kind of his baby. And he has always been bold, I think, and gone with his heart. And that is something that up until this point, I don't think I have done. I've always been weighted by the weight of expectations. And now I've tried to kind of shift my mind away from that, and look inward and see what are my true passions, what am I really interested in, and why do I feel the need to just be one thing? Because for so long, I was only defined as being a climate advocate. And even though that is something that is fundamental to my core, there's so much more to me, and there's so many creative aspects for me as well. And I wanted to figure out the ways that I could use creative direction and connect it to something like advocacy.
It's an interesting thing that you said a moment ago that I want to double back to, the weight of expectations. What place did that have in maybe you pushing you in this direction? I know you talked about coming out on the other end, doing what is your passion, and what you feel strongly about. But that weight of expectations is something that we don't necessarily look at, because a lot of the times, like you said, young people are guided by what they think their parents expect, or their community expects, or other people expect when they look on. So how were you able to kind of shift that and decipher, hey, this is my direction? Was it difficult at all? Did you feel as though you were maybe setting some people aside? What was the process?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult at first. Sorry, just recovering from a cold from my last trip.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, it was definitely difficult because, like I said, the weight of expectations is big. Everybody expects you to kind of be one thing, and when you deviate from that, people kind of look at you weird. So I just had to kind of block out the eyes and try and think, well, this is my life. Excuse me, and I want to live it as fully as I want to live it. And so if that is the case, then in what ways do I want to do that? And so that's why I decided to just not feel like I needed to be just one thing. And so it's been a process, and it's definitely still a process that I'm on, and trying to figure out the ways in which I can advance my project. So whether it's been in podcasting, whether it's in advocacy, whether it's in, international relations, and using my degree in the future, I want to figure out different ways in which I can connect those things and advance them, not only for myself, but in ways that I can give back to community as well, because I think that's the number one thing that I personally think is my purpose in life.
And that's such an interesting thing. For many years, we've always asked young people, what do you want to be? Or what do you want to do? And it sounds to me like you're saying, I don't want to choose right now. I don't want to choose any one thing. I want to chart my own path. So, in keeping with what I need to ask, I must ask, where are you headed? With all of this passion and the advocacy behind you for these social issues, the content creation, your love for obviously sharing, and then this first class honors degree in international relations, this big valedictory sign on you now, where do you hope that will all take you?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, honestly. Even though I don't think people should, feel the pressure of figuring out everything they want to do immediately for their entire lives at this one point, I just think that's crazy, but I do think it is a really good question. So for me, my main focus right now is developing the podcast. I really, really want to develop the podcast and build that community and just find ways to connect and inform and help people feel seen. And then I also have been working a lot in the UK now as well, which is now where I'm based. So I've been working with an organization called Gloucestershire Night Stop, which gives back or provides emergency accommodation for youth homelessness. And we also give life skills for people, specifically those aged 16 to 25, that youth bracket, the life skills that they might be lacking because of just the system and social justice issues. And obviously, not everybody has the same resources and privileges that everybody else has. So I've been figuring out ways in which I can be on the front lines and give back in different ways to that. And then in the future, what I see for myself, I think, would be a bit of creative direction. But I've always said to myself that I really can't ever see myself working in a job where it's not something meaningful or it's not something that's giving back to a community. So if I'm doing creative direction, which is definitely the route that I want to travel, I would want to be doing creative direction for a meaningful organization. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. It's been great talking to you.
Thank
I
you.
I remember seeing you as a little one. It's time for me to embarrass you now. And then all of a sudden, I saw your mom do this post last week, and I was like, she graduated university already? So
Yeah.
it's wonderful to see you, and congratulations on all of your achievements. I certainly look forward to what's next. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, there she is. You definitely should listen out for more from her and check out that podcast as well.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.